folks, thanks for joining me today. So today we are going to be painting on a large oval stone that I made from a mold from the Happy Dotting Company. There is a link in the description below. And I'm just showing you that I'm doing this freehand, and I did not like the actual location where I put it. I found that the word love was elongated and closer to the bottom than it was on the top. And I didn't like how I positioned the center one, so I erased those and then redrew them and was happy with that. So then the O is going to eventually be a heart in the middle. So I just drew that on freehand, and I'm using a medium-sized wide brush, and I'm using white paint. So this is the DecoArt white. It is base coated with a DecoArt black, and I'm just using the width of the paintbrush to give me the squareness or the straightness of each letter. So I do go back and fix them up with my fine lining brush. But for now, to get the actual shape of the letter, make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be, I just use this brush here to give myself the width that I want each letter to be. So I do the E, and then I do the V, and then I will move to the L because I really want the heart, that's going to be the O, to be the visual point, or I guess in the same kind of shape, size, and dimension as the rest of the letters. So I thought if I do the rest of the letters first, then do my heart, then I wouldn't have anything to worry about. So I start off with the point, and I head on left, and it could be because I'm left-handed and that's why I do it that way. I must admit to you that I've always had a hard time drawing hearts. One side's always bigger than the other. I can't seem to get them symmetrical. So this was rather tough for me to do, and I did a lot of fidgeting with it and fiddling, but I got it to where I wanted it to be. So I'm doing this love rock because Valentine's Day is on its way, and it's really not that far away. It's like less than a week, and I thought this would be fitting to do a love rock. And I just had a lot of fun with this. I used different techniques, I used different paint, and I just had fun with it. And I'm very pleased on how it turned out. And I'm very excited to show you the different techniques and the different paints that I used. So what I'm doing now, as you can see, is I'm just sharpening up those edges on the letters just to make them really square, because I want them to be nice, bold block letters, because I will be painting a sparkle red paint on top of this. And that's why I'm doing it in white first, because the sparkle paint will then really show that sparkle once it's resined. I find that if you use the sparkle paint on top of black, it gets sort of eaten up by the black. So you've got to make sure that you've got a really bright background color, or the same color as what the glitter paint is going to be, or the sparkle paint. That's the only way that you can really get the best effect out of those types of paints. And the sparkle paint that I use is DecoArt Glamour Dust Ultra Fine Glitter Paint. And the title of it is Sizzling Red. So I thought, oh my gosh, we got to use Sizzling Red on a love rock, right? I mean, it's all about the sizzle and the attraction and the affection that goes along with Valentine's Day. So I thought it was fitting. So we're using Sizzling Red, and it's, like I said, from DecoArt, and it's Glamour Dust. It's ultra fine glitter. I find that the bulkier glitter paints, they're fun, but I find that I don't get the results that I want out of them. That doesn't mean that they're not good paints. It's just not my cup of tea, I guess we'll say. So I'm just finishing up here, squaring off these letters and making them rather sharp and crisp. because I really want to get a really good base on these so that I can put on the glitter paint. And I use all sorts of different types of paint just to, one, just to spruce it up and to give it lots of color and depth, and two, to really show how each shows up on a black background. Now, having said that, I already know what the glitter paint would look like because I've made that mistake many times. And actually, I shouldn't call it a mistake. It all depends on the look that you're going for. In this particular painting, I really wanted the red of the letters to be the focal point. So that's why I painted the background white first before I put on any of the glitter paint. So now what I'm doing is I'm just doing some touch-ups because some of my white kind of got away from me, and so I'm just using my fine lining brush and some black paint, and I'm just really cleaning up the edges here, making everything look really good because, like I said, I want this to be the focal point and I want it to be perfect. And you can do this any way that you want. You don't have to do it the way that I'm doing. The colors that I'm using will be listed in the description below, but that does not mean that you need to use the exact same colors. I urge you to use whatever you have in your stash. If you don't have a pink, but you've got red and white, then you've got a pink, right? So you just got to play around with your paint colors, mix them up, and you don't need to have a huge stash in order to get beautiful paintings. So um, mine is just inspiration for you and to encourage you to use the colors that you have available to you. I just drew these on here. So if you're not comfortable with using your own handwriting, or maybe it's a little bit difficult for you, there are a lot of different stencils out there that you can use. You can position them, and as long as you use a charcoal pencil that easily removes with water or an eraser or anything like that, you can use a stencil instead. So you don't have to hand write it yourself. I have tried to do some handwriting, so some script. How do they call it now in schools? It's cursive. So instead of doing some of my own handwriting in cursive, I might use something that I like from the internet, and I'll print it off as a stencil, or and just use like carbon paper to draw it on, that sort of thing. The options are endless for being able to get around doing anything if you don't like your handwriting. So, I mean, those are out there, but give it a try. You'd be actually quite amazed when you do your own handwriting, and how it looks, especially after you've started to paint it. Maybe I'll do one, a tutorial that shows that, and I'll do a word. Um, there's something you guys can let me know in the comments below. Give me words that you would like to see on a rock and in handwriting. That would be really interesting to see what your comments bring, and might even give me the inspiration that I need. So as I've been jabbing here, and you guys have been watching me work away, I've been adding these little hearts that are sort of peeking out from behind the letters, and I am painting them really close but not touching for all of the letters. So you can see that there's a separation, and it gives that idea that it is behind, and it's only by leaving a small thin black line between the heart and the letter. So that's another sort of tip that you could do if you want something that is behind to look like it's behind. Have something in front of it, painted over top of it, or have this, in this case, the black outline. It's just another quick little tip that you can do that really, gives you the effect that you're looking for. So here's that DecoArt Glamour dust paint that I was talking to you about. Now, when I first put it on, it went on very well, but when I tried to move it around, it actually moved off of the white paint. So what I ended up doing was really loading up my paintbrush and just dabbing it on and pushing the paint to the edges of the white. And that's as far as I went. I didn't go over the white. There was a couple of spots where I didn't quite get to the edge, but that's okay because it no, you didn't really see it. So I was okay to leave it that way, and I just pushed the paint to where I wanted it to go, just by dabbing the paintbrush up and down and moving the paint, just by basically using this paintbrush like a sponge and moving the paint around. So I do this on just the letters. So this particular paint is just on the letters. I don't use the glitter paint anywhere else on the rock. It's just on the letters. So that way it's different from everything else that's going to be on the rock. So it becomes the actual vocal point, which again, like I said, is what I wanted. So I do all the letters this way with the same technique because, like I said, when I tried to paint the paint by, like gliding my paintbrush across, it pulled it off of the white paint. The white paint stayed there because it's nice and dry, but the sparkle paint kind of moved and I ended up getting white spots that shined through. So this way I just dabbed it on and it worked really well. It actually put a thick coat on it and raised it up a bit as well. So not only does it give the illusion that it is in the forefront, but when you run your fingers over it, you can feel that it's raised from the rest of the painting. And so it not only gives you the visual, it gives you the touch. So, which was kind of cool, not something I planned, but these things happen and sometimes they're for the better. And I was very, very happy and surprised that that's how it worked out. But give it a try. So I have to admit that I don't know an awful lot about Valentine's Day other than it's a day of love to show appreciation to the person that you love. Doesn't necessarily have to be your significant other. Could be a friend, could be a sibling, maybe your parents. It doesn't necessarily have to be your significant other. However, that's how it's marketed, and that's, I guess, where a lot of people celebrate each other. However, the way I see it is I don't need a day specifically designed or designated for just that. I like to be able to show my love, my appreciation anytime that I want to. I don't need a particular day to observe this. However, there are people out there that just thrive on Valentine's Day, and that's totally cool. And if you are somebody who does not have a significant other to share Valentine's Day with, or maybe it's just, it holds maybe some horrible memories for you, or I don't know, something along that lines that does not make this day a happy day for you, I want you to know that I love you. So you don't have to feel that it's a wasted day because I'm telling you right now that I love you. So thank you for coming back to my channel and watching every time I post a new video. Commenting if you're one of my regular commenters. I'm telling you, I love reading your comments, and I try to answer if there's any questions because I feel like that's my way to give back to you. And again, I don't need a particular day to be able to tell you that. So I'm going to use today as the day to tell you that I love you and you're a great person, and don't let anybody else tell you anything different. That's all I've got to say about that. So that brings me to the whole segment of my useless piece of information. I actually had to research because I didn't know a lot of stuff about Valentine's Day. I mean, I know about the Cupid thing and the love potions and all that kind of stuff, but I wanted something interesting. So I Googled, and wow, I found that there's actually superstitions that are surrounded by Valentine's Day. And one of them that really sort of struck me was if on Valentine's Day you take an apple and you cut it in half, and the number of seeds that is on one side is the number of children that you're going to have. So now, if you're as old as I am, childbearing has long left and you've already done that, or maybe you haven't and didn't ever want to, totally fine. But for you younger folks, maybe give it a try and see if it holds truth. I don't know if it does or if it doesn't, but it's one of the superstitions that is surrounded by Valentine's Day. So, that's your useless piece of information, but it's a fun fact as well. So, and it's a superstition. So, take with it what you will. I found it really kind of neat. So, I wanted to share that with you. So, as I was sharing that with you, I put on some hearts with a dotting tool, and then I used a dotting needle to drag them down. So, what I did was I put two dots beside each other and touching, and then I dragged them down into a point with my dotting needle, and then filled in the center. So the paint that I used for those was the Dragonfly glaze that is a red, violet, blue shift. So when you turn the rock, those colors, they gleam differently from different angles. So you might see them as red, you might see them as violet or like a deep purple, or you might see them as blue. So that's why I did that. I did that on the back, on the black background, because they stand out better. So I've also put on, and you can't really tell, but it's the enchanted shimmering glaze that I use a lot, especially when I'm doing stuff with water or snow, that kind of thing. I put some of that on the hearts that are peeking out behind the letters. And unfortunately, you can't really see it very well, but once it's resined, you can see it. So I wasn't too worried about that. And I didn't show you that part because you couldn't really tell what I was doing other than it looked like I was painting more white onto the hearts. So and now what I'm doing is I am taking some white paint and I'm painting on some more small hearts or smaller hearts, and I'm going to let them dry. So while I let them dry, I am taking my nail stylist or my dotting tool, and I am just adding little white dots all over the place. And the reason why is because these are going to be the centers of my cute little pink flowers. So I'm going to show you a close up on what I do with these. But so I do 5 petals. So basically 5 dots. So I start off by making a triangle. So an imaginary line will go through or beside, sorry, will go beside the white dot. So I start with one at the top, bring an imaginary line down to the left, put a dot, an imaginary line to the right, put a dot, and then that should line up again to make the imaginary triangle. I hope I explained that okay. Then I used a dotting tool, or sorry, my dotting needle to drag it into a point into the center of the little white dot. So the next flower that I do, I'm pretty sure I do a close up on it so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, here we go. So there's one on the side and another one on the side. So this triangle I did opposite, but I did the bottom of it first and then the top, and then I added those two. That's how you get 5 relatively equally spaced petals. And then I just use my dotting needle and I pull that dot into a point, so a teardrop, towards the center of the flower. And that's how I do it. And I do that for every single white dot that I've put on there all the way around. So this is just adding another dimension. Another thing that's associated with Valentine's Day is flowers. Most of the time it's roses, but I wanted to go with something that was a little bit more um, soft, I guess. So now the white hearts are dry. So I'm going to paint over top of them with some neon paint. Now I haven't used this paint a lot. Um, I did buy a couple of colors just to try and play with. But this is neon pink. And I found that I had to apply it almost the same way as the glitter paint for the word love because it was almost like melted plastic, if you can understand what I'm saying. I mean, it's still paint, and it still went on okay, but I had to push it around and it was very elasticity, like it had a lot of spring back on it. So but I really liked how adding the pink into that. It's hard to tell, but the petals on the flowers, those are oh, what's the color? It is wild berry, and that's from Americana. And so it's kind of like in between a red and a pink, so like a really deep pink. And that's why I wanted to go with the neon pink to sort of tie all those colors together. So then I'm going to outline just the white hearts that are peeking out behind the word love. I'm going to outline those in gold because gold associated with Valentine's Day can incorporate jewelry of any sort, that kind of thing. So that's why I decided to go with that. So I think I've pretty much covered everything that goes with the stigma of Valentine's Day. We've got love, we've got reds, pinks, and we've got hearts, and we've got gold, and we've got flowers. So I think I've covered the bases I can on this one rock. So now I'm just adding in some little, we can call them shooting stars, I guess, just walking the dots with four and just doing that to fill in some of the spaces. And then I go in and I do some just single dots. I let it dry and then it's ready for a coat of resin. So there you have it, folks. Life is what you make it. So get creative.